And we are here with Professor Chambers.
My
Welcome
dog,
back.
Man, how you been, bro?
Good. Glad to be back. Sorry. As the first guest, you know, I kind of set the pace a little bit. So now, this is like the homecoming episode for me.
He said the pace for this shit. Right?
I did. I kind of was. This was like a trial by fire situation for all of us. Yes. You know, I never did anything like this. You know,
we hadn't either.
You guys were artists, but as artists, you were able to create a platform for you know, for the people, right? For the culture. It's funny because I'm not I'm a professor, so for me to come on here, I was like, okay, this is out of my norm,
right?
You know, but definitely I got a lot of messages after, as far as just the SWOT analysis, as far as the conversation, as far as how you two operate in the dynamic, you know, as far as the male, female, you know, the conversation. I'm definitely proud of you guys. It's been an amazing time since I've been here.
Hey, sometimes you gotta give yourself a pat on the back. I'm gonna give a pat on the back.
You have to.
For real, I'm proud of us.
Yeah, for real. We did a lot.
Like, this is a little bit of a celebration.
No, for real though, anybody if you got an idea, you really can like just bring it to life, and it leads to other things.
So you definitely manifested something different. Yeah, the manifestation was real. So
you already know. And when we started, we didn't even, you know, like, not only had we never done something like this, but again, like, we freestyled it, and then we never thought that we would be doing red carpet interviees and throwing showcases and stuff, and that all happened.
I need you to say that again. That was a bar, and that was a lesson. Right?
We never thought we would be honest, like literally.
That was never the plan.
By Tiana Taylor and Coyle Ray doing media with all these big people and shit. That led from the podcast.
The manifestation process for you guys is crazy because it's not logical, it's magical, right? Like it's kind of like, hey, we can't put two and two together, but this is how we get to four, right? So I wanted to kind of start by giving you guys your flowers, you know what I mean?
Appreciate it.
I think that right now, I think I touched on it a little bit last time, and I wanted to recap on this because a lot of people messaged me as far as the feminine, masculine energy and where we are right now in the podcast space and in the social media space, right?
So not to cut you off.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not bad podcasting, not to cut you off.
Yeah.
I want to since you just said that, I got some questions I want to ask you. Okay.
1000%.
So you said social media, and then you said the female what?
The masculine, feminine.
Okay.
Social media. Okay. And podcasting. So where are we at with these three things?
How do you feel about relationships and this new generation? How do you feel about social media? First of all, like, with relationships.
So which one of you guys has heard the term the gender wars?
I have, for sure.
Right. And what the gender wars are, if you're not paying attention, is right now you have a lot of like YouTube and you have a lot of podcasts, a lot of posts. Yeah. Men are supposed to be this way. Women are supposed to be this way. She's for the streets. He doesn't have enough money. So what's happening is social media is pushing a narrative. And this is kind of for our generation and for, you know, people, male, female, it's kind of like, okay, well, I want to invest in this relationship, but I'm not sure because I'm getting fed this thing.
Bullshit.
Right.
Bullshit. So to see
Very
male,
divisive.
we don't really see a lot of productive conversation between men and women.
Yeah.
Sadly, you know, growing up, we had Family Matters. We had a lot of TV shows, you know, The Fresh Prince, and they kind of showed you this is a healthy dynamic. We're both professionals. You know this is how we're supposed to communicate, right?
Even Roseanne.
Right. So now what is missing is right now we kind of have this little war going on. So what is my thoughts? And I think that right now,
the real opinion, like, what's your thoughts?
My real opinion is that right now what you're doing is actually something I want to bring up, which is it's a strategy in what the strategy is. So there's something I want to drop a bar on with you guys. It's called the red ocean, blue ocean. Okay. Now, a red ocean, right, is red because there's a lot of sharks competing for this, right? So that means, you know, it could be podcasting, right? There's a lot of negative men versus with the gender wars. Everyone's trying to prove a point, right? Now, the blue ocean is something you create. You might be the ones to create the narrative of like, hey, men and women can work together and be productive, right? Men can be good, you know, partners for their women. Women can be independent women that are good partners for their men. Yeah. But we're just not seeing this yet. So this is my opinion is sometimes you got to be the first, right? So my opinion is definitely, you know, today's day and age, we just don't have, there's no mentors, right? What did J. Cole say? There's no role models. There's no role models right now. So we need you guys, right? Hey, that's my personal professional opinion.
I seen a meme. It was like, bro, if you had an OG back in the day, that's a cheat code. If you got a mentor, like you said, OG or a mentor, right? It was like a cheat code. You know what
These are big homie rules. What did Yo Gotti say? These are big homie rules.
Exactly.
I give my little homies tools, something they can use.
Bars.
That was something where I was like, man, like I don't think that people realize how big of a deal it is to have an example, right? Or to have something that's positive. The representation, man, and to side note, me teaching, they tell me like, hey, you know, a lot of these young students, they'd never seen this before. I'm like, what? You know?
Not for real.
Yeah, man. Like, you know, so sometimes we have to be the example. We have to be the outlier or the one of one. Right?
Hey, the way I feel about it is my opinion. I know
okay, break it down for me.
Whenever you, we have a conversation.
Definitely.
The way I feel about it is like social media is like really like it really fucked everything up. And like, okay, MySpace is social media, but that was MySpace. You know what I'm saying? It was more fun. And then Facebook, and it got more personal a little bit, right?
Well, at one point it was more just like only small groups of people were using it, like college students, or you know, it wasn't like your auntie and your grandma and everybody's on there too. But then it really took over in society in general, because like if you aren't on social media, you're looked at as odd.
All right, so you a female? Are you a female? So if a dude approach you, shout out to my nigga T, you know what I'm saying? It's all good. Shout out my nigga T. But say real shit, if a dude approached you and he just approached you like, hey, how you doing? I want to take you to dinner. Cool. Would you? All right, I'm gonna give you two scenarios. Or if a dude approached you, put up in a Rolls Royce, like, hey, what's up, little mama? What's up? Hop in. What's up? Who you gonna go for? The gentleman or the Rolls?
Oh no, I'm definitely going for the gentleman if I'm going at all. Okay. But no, I mean like you know, with social media too, it's like I was thinking along the lines of what we had just said with that question you asked, because it's like the first thing that you really would do, the first thing I usually do before I'm going anywhere trying to like meet or know anybody as friends or whatever is you look at their social media, see what they about. You kind of get a preview of who they are before you even actually have to get to know them.
A perception.
It's the resume, right? It's your personal brand.
Hey,
right, so your personal brand, and this is what I try to tell some of my students and some people is, you know, you need to be very aware of what you're presenting for yourself, right? You need to be very aware. Technically right now, I can't just go on any podcast, right? Like I can't just go anywhere and have my opinion, because at some point someone down the line is going to tie me to a college, and they're going to say, hey, you know, what is this college, what are they endorsing right now by hiring him? You know what I mean?
For sure. So we appreciate you coming on.
Oh, of course, 1000%. Future voice of the culture. I think I made that up.
Over here, so we're safe.
Definitely.
We're safe for work, y'all.
Definitely. Let me ask you guys a question though, because this is something that I try to ask a lot of my students, right?
Okay.
How do you guys feel about the climate of podcasts right now? And what are you guys, how are you guys different?
I watch podcasts all the time.
Yeah,
fair enough.
And I watch clips of them all the time, which is also kind of like why we decided to change our format, because like you said, the ADHD is out of control and like nobody has the attention span. But I feel like it's really saturated. I feel like, and not to say that like, everyone thinks they can do it. Not that they can't. Anyone can do anything they put their minds to, but like everyone's trying to do it, you know? And so I think it's saturated, and I think there is some good content out there, but a lot of it is, you know, the kind of tit for tat, men and women, gender wars, or, you know, like misogynist, get a microphone, that happens a lot. And then, you know what I mean? So I think there is some good content and some good content creators. I just think that more of it, though, is very divisive. I don't think a lot of it's bringing people together, and I don't think it's giving too many people the correct shine or opportunity.
Gotcha.
So I think that we will do that, and we do that.
Yes. I feel like my answer would be like, I feel like podcasts is like music. You listen to what you relate to. So I listen to a lot of LA podcasts, and shout out Back on Fig, Ace Boy Pun, AD Community. I listen to Joe Rogan too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, mix it up. Definitely.
Joe Budden. I can keep going. I can name 20 podcasts. Mawlz and Donn, of course. But it's like, you listen to what you
Breakfast
relate to.
Club. It's kind of like a radio show.
Yeah, exactly. Shit like academics. You know what I'm saying? So it's streaming this podcast, but you listen to what you relate to. So I'm from Long Beach. It's LA County. So I really watch a lot of LA podcasts. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
You know, but I still am like a you know, I didn't say I'm a nerd. You know what I'm saying?
You're a nerd.
Yeah, you gotta be nerdy.
I'm a hood nerd. Fuck it, put it that way. I'm a deep nigga, so I like to listen to, like I said, Joe Rogan.
The variety is good, right?
Exactly,
now, this is my only takeaway, right? Yeah. And this is what I was kind of touched on a little bit earlier as far as YouTube, right? With a lot of podcasts right now. And this is something that is as an educator. So one thing, let me give you a little backstory. So this whole last year, I've been educating in the jail system. So I built a classroom for business, and I've been teaching inside the jail system, teaching inmates. Gotcha. So now this is becoming near and dear to me, right? Gotcha. And one of the things I think that is one thing I dislike about the podcast space that I like that you guys aren't doing is this thing where people are getting in trouble for telling stuff in a podcast interview. And I'm like, look, we kind of need to shift away from this as a culture. Like the culture right now where you have hip hop artists, you know, and they might tell a story or something and you're getting baited.
Yeah, so these podcasts, like people, man, so many artists come on and
just telling on themselves.
Yeah, and it's like talking too much. But you know what I lead to though? Or not lead to, where I come from, it's no artist development, it's no media training. They just go in there and think they just pop their shit.
Well, and also sometimes it's like clout related because when
okay, let me ask you guys a question, right? Because this is ultimately this isn't from me, this is from Jay-Z, right? And this is what I say as far as why I give you guys a lot of praise as podcast hosts. Do you want to be a trend or do you want to be Ralph Lauren, right? There's this immediate clout, like this popular little area where you do something that goes viral and you can't keep this up, right? You're popular for a month. Right. But we want longevity over here. Like I want to be able to come back to here year after year and have these conversations on what's changed. That's why I put a lot on the time on you guys' Instagram page, like the future voice of the culture. Like because right now there's not really longevity in this, and podcasting is it's a newer technology, right?
It's more,
and when you're new, you're the first. When you're the first, you never know. You're paving the way, right?
Sure.
Anytime you're the first to something. So what I think with this space right now, I think it's good that you guys aren't playing into whatever is negative with the artist.
Oh no,
like that is easy, but that gets a lot of clicks, right? Exactly. So you're developing something.
People love mess and drama.
Exactly.
Love and hip hop.
Speaking of mess and drama, okay, we got some games, some free game, soak it up, but this guy is a really intelligent young black man. He in the jail systems right now, OC jail systems.
Yeah, tell us about what you're doing with that.
Yeah, definitely. So let's circle back to the first interview, right? The first interview I had been teaching for about a year, and I was teaching at a college, and what ultimately it was a dean liked the way I presented a class and a subject, and I was able to use, the tools I had, and one thing is, I always want to give the information, right? Because I never got that. I never had someone, I never had a mentor. I never had somebody tell me like, hey, here's what you go to school for. It was more like you go to school, right? And then you're first generation college graduate or your first generation entrepreneur, you're bumping against all these speed bumps and whatnot, right? Yeah. So what ends up happening is a funny story. Another dean referred me to a program that was teaching in the jail system. And of course I was kind of like, okay, you know what? It's different because when you go into a jail system as an educator, you're going into a demographic of a student that could have a lot of potential, but they're not getting their needs met to learn. When you go into jail, you're tired, you're malnourished, you're not eating enough, you're not getting the right medical attention. You sleep a couple hours, they wake you up to work all night, right? This is a business.
Not to cut you off.
For sure.
I never cut you off.
Definitely.
But, so you saying like, for people that's listening,
yeah,
you are a teacher in the jail,
a professor of business,
grown ass men,
grown men and women, and women. And this is the thing think about like this, right? You're not only are you going into this space where you have people that aren't, it's a system that. The system, we run on systems as a country. We know this, right? Sure. Certain things are a business, right? Yeah. Statistically, I should be in here. I'm like, statistically, like, I came from a single parent household, hardworking mom, statistically in the inner city, like, you have a run-in, So I go into, I call it, I kind of say like going behind enemy lines, and I'm trying to give the information. Now, the other conflict I was telling you is a lot of the time when you're in a situation like jail, I wouldn't wish that on nobody. Because you're in a situation where you're treated like a number, and they take away your identity, and they take away your abilities to function, right? You don't get the right sleep, you don't get sunlight, you don't get the right vitamins out of your food, so you're kind of operating at a low level. So I come in and I'm like, and my thing was I really wanted to do was I treat them like a college student. I'm like, look, even though you're in this situation, I'm not going to feel bad for you. I'm going to challenge you to rise higher. And we're going to have a conversation about business, right? We talk about podcasts. We talk about all this stuff.
How do they accept you?
I think that at first that the walls are up. Now, when you look at two different genders, you have the male gender where this could be something racial. Young black man coming in here with his beard and, trying to poke his chest out, right? And it's like, oh, like he thinks he's going to overpower me to learn. Right. He thinks he's somebody, right? Then you have the women where it could be something traumatic happen and it could be a man. Most of the trauma, I think, comes from a man for women, right? I can't speak for women, but a lot of the time, some stuff happened and it supply demand. So I kind of have to use a different tonality with each one, right? Now, what I think is, my honest opinion is kind of like this podcast. If your information is right and your content is right, that takes care of itself, right? The good takes care of the bad, right? Like if you basically have a misstep or something, people can look at everything you've done and be like, okay, like this person is valid, they're good, the information is good. Now, what I think about the system itself, it does take me some time to decompress when I leave. I have to kind of sit in the car a little bit and like, yo, you know, these are people's parents, moms.
Like
you go to the women's jail.
You get to go home and be comfortable.
Yeah, you go to the women's jail and they got kids outside and they're younger than me. And I'm like, man, like it takes you down that road, you know?
Probably in the class with somebody got like 20, 15 years, but you actually leave every
They're
day.
fighting 20 to 15 years. And they're in a position of anxiety of like, yo, this is...
So you're in that environment, but you can leave every day.
Absolutely.
You know
and then when you leave...
That's crazy.
When you leave, you get survivor's guilt. Like, man, that's somebody that that woman is just like one of my relatives that's a woman that just made a bad decision. Right now, how do we change this? When you get out, I tell them you better start a business. You better use a SWOT analysis I gave on the Mawlz and Donn podcast when I was the first guest. I'm like, look, there's ways we can get out of these things, right? We can turn a bad situation good 1,000%, but for sure. You know, so what I would tell you guys is I think that in society right now, I think that we need to be aware, right? I think people need to be aware because people get labeled something like a felon and it throws a person away. Yeah, for sure.
My opinion on that is like,
break it down.
Just because you're a felon, just because you bang, that shit don't mean nothing. Because like, okay, first of all, most people that like get into the street life, you're a product of your environment. You know what I'm saying?
Poverty.
Some people was born into the shit. Some people was raised
1,000%.
different. You know what I'm saying? So if you raised by such a drug dealer or the game, that's how you grow up. That's what you think is normal until you grow up and become a man or a woman, and that's when you start elevating and start really like, you know.
Let me tell you something that's crazy, right?
But you still, hold on.
Deconditioning.
Okay, break it down.
But you still from there, and you still, that's what made you. But like some people like, yeah, you from there, and kind of like it's like best of both worlds. You know what I'm saying? I know how to talk to people. I know how to go job interview. I know how to.
But let's look like this, right? This is just one little story. One little story, right? An inmate was basically like, look, professor, we work all night and we get like 16 cents and bread costs $1. So I was like, wait a minute, a piece of bread, not a slice, like not a loaf, right? Like, so what I'm saying is when we gotta realize what we're up against, right? And we gotta realize that everything is in place for certain reasons. Now we don't know these reasons, we don't know these systems, but we gotta realize that these systems and we gotta maneuver accordingly. If you're a young man or young woman, it ain't worth it. You better maneuver accordingly. And and it's our responsibility though to share this with the younger the next generation. Hey, you know. Instead of doing that, go start a podcast and be positive like Mawlz and Donn. Like Mawlz and Donn.
Start a podcast and keep
the examples, the future voice of the culture.
It feels so good to be back. I just want to say that.
It's a blessing to be here. I appreciate you guys having me again. You know, setting the pace.
Hey, so, okay, before you wrap your, you know, tell them about the SWOT analysis and get what you want to get.
Let's touch back on what I wanted to touch back because last time we talked about the SWOT analysis of you guys, right? The strength, the weakness, the opportunities, the threats, right? I think one thing I would say, because I didn't really get my opinion, and I like how far this has come. One of the biggest strength I think for you guys is you're leading the way as far as being a positive male female dynamic in hip hop that's not pushing artists to share negativity, right? Now this is the thing, when there's a weakness doesn't always mean something that you lack. It's just that you're the first to do this, right? So there's a thing where somebody had talked about Off-White and Virgil Abloh's design, and they were like, yeah, what he did that was genius was he took something that was out like an Air Force One and tweaked it a little bit, and they called it the 3% rule. You change something 3% and they change it to 100%. Now what I think is, it's not that someone's going to copy you guys and do that. I think that you guys will evolve and learn to do that. Now the opportunities I've seen from you guys, so just to clarify, you guys don't have a weakness, you're just new, right? You're in a new space and you're creating your own space in this space, right? Now, what I would say is the opportunity is, I think it was amazing that you guys did a lot of pop-up and a lot of collaborative efforts at events. And I was like, okay, so you guys were getting your faces out there with the people. Yeah. Now, we got the merchandise. Now, what you guys did that was big was you had the logo with the white and red. Now, one of the biggest things in marketing we say is, right, Mawlz? One of the biggest things in marketing and branding is you got to own a color. Exactly. When you look at, when you think about Starbucks, they own green. When you think about McDonald's, it's red and yellow, right? Now, when you think about Mawlz and Donn, it's the white and red, the logo, right? So the biggest thing is, what I would say for you guys next is, you guys not only collaborate more, you might develop what's a tent pole, where it's basically, you know, you have the tent of Mawlz and Donns, and you have separate little segments or shows with other individuals and giving them a platform, right? Now you'll get to the point where you give back, right? And what I would say would be the threats. I would say, besides, you know, you had a medical issue, so there really isn't a threat, right? There's no threat.
Look that
There's
shit
no,
up.
It's a real thing.
I got you up again, but I could, man, I ain't lying, man. I got a testimony.
Yeah, he's doing bad, man.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. Yeah, and the real sciatica. Yeah, and the real threat.
If you got that shit, I pray.
And what I say to myself sometimes, the threat is comfort, right? We either evolve or get extinct. So you guys are evolving. I'm like, yo, keep this going. Like, don't put your foot off the gas.
Yeah, nah.
1000%, because the culture needs it, right? We need this dynamic.
Not for real. Even you saying that, how many people have told us that?
Yeah, ever since we went on our pods, we've had a lot of people contacting us like, what happened to the show? We want the show back. Can we get on the show? And
shout out
when are you doing a new showcase? And
shout out Christian.
Yeah, shout out Christian, still riding with us.
The producer of the show, you know, he can't see him right now, but he tells us all the time, like, bro, y'all could really be something big. Like, just keep going. Just keep
Am I welcome back? Am I back for part 3 of this saga? Am I welcome back on the show?
Season 2, episode 1, you here, bro.
Let's do it, man. Let's get it.
You already know.
Absolutely.
Whenever you want to come back on.
Thank you, Professor Chambers.
Amen. Thank you, too. Mawlz, a blessing to be here again.
And go ahead and drop your socials for the people.
Yeah, absolutely. So TikTok is the new one. So Professor Chambers there. I feel like that for the people that don't know, that algorithm is really going crazy, right?
TikTok is booming.
It is, yeah.
J/O Chambers on Instagram, or actually you could do the better one is __prof.chambers. So sorry, I changed my social media a lot because again, I'm connected to these colleges. I don't even want to look a little bit like he was doing. These are academia, right? But next time I think next time we might have to talk about the algorithms in the marketing, how we do the technology.
I mean, what time is it?
I'm gonna drop the socials.
8:04, so we do got to keep it moving.
Yeah, that's another conversation for another day.
Next time,
1000%. But give me on the socials.
I'm gonna be real quick, real short. TikTok, I love you. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm new to TikTok, and y'all show it to the world. Instagram algorithm is stupid, man. Like,
we'll talk about that next time.
We'll talk about it on the next
time. next time. A blessing.
But again, thank you so much for being here tonight. And we're back at it again. Season 2, Mawlz and Donn, Professor Chambers.
That part.